Hey Muller Gators, Mrs. Ezzy here with your option 2 for the week, and we're going to be working on some watercolor techniques. So if you have supplies, things you'll need, some watercolors, if you have any salt, and then water and a paintbrush. So remember, if you don't have these supplies, there is a no supplies, no problem option that you can do. Also remember that you can use old or dried up markers as watercolors, and you just dip the marker in the water, and that can also be used for watercolors. So you have a few options this week. So we're just going to go over some different techniques. I'm going to teach you how to do different types of watercolors, and then you can make your own choice art drawing. So we can get started. So this is my new contraption instead of my cereal box to teach you how to do some watercolors. So the first one we're going to do, it's called dry brush. So I'll just label it dry brush. Okay, and with the dry brush, you're going to put a little bit, you gotta just put a little bit of water on your watercolors. Now right now it's still wet, but as you go, there you go. You can see on the bottom, it's getting drier and drier. So this is what dry brush looks like, and you can kind of use this for different grasses or techniques like that. It's a good example for your dry brush. Now, the next one is called wet on dry, and that's kind of what we just did. It's very similar. You're going to use a wet watercolor on a dry paper, and that's just your regular, most people, that's what we're used to for watercolors, is a wet on dry technique. Okay? Going forward, there's a technique called wet on wet. And with this technique, you are going to wet your paper first, and then you're going to add the wet watercolors on top of it. And you can see that this has more of a smeared effect compared to the wet on dry. This might be good if you're doing a sky or clouds. Maybe the ocean would be good wet on wet. And this is a good layering technique. So that's one you would use for layering, okay? Now, we're going to teach you some fun ones. This is going to be called gradation. And this is where you're going to try to practice going from dark to medium to light. And that's just by letting up a little bit on your brush or adding a little bit more watercolors towards the end. You can also, a second one that goes along with that is something called layers. And layers is exactly what it means. You can put different layers of watercolors. So this would be my first layer. Maybe I gotta let it dry, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. We gotta let it dry for a second. All right, 2 more to go that I want to teach you about really quickly. Oh, actually 3, I'm so sorry. 3 more to go. So one that's very fun is the one I asked for, the salt. So you can add water and do your watercolor spot. And you want this one to be a little bit wet, so you don't want it to be too dry. And you're gonna add some salt on there. Now you're gonna let the salt take a minute, and what it's going to do is it's going to suck up those water, and it's going to give you almost like a little sparkly effect that's gonna look almost like stars or something along those lines. And you can even do it once you added the salt on. You can do a little bit more and see what happens that way too. Now, my practice is that I think it turns out better when you put the water on first and then the salt. You have to wait for this to dry though, for you to see the actual effect, okay? But you can go back to your layers, look here, and add a second layer. Now let it dry, and see, you can make it the same effect with layers, okay? Okay, the fun one that everybody always really likes, splatter. And to splat your paint, you need a little bit of water, and you can do it like this. With your finger, you can do it like this. on your finger. So there's several different ways you can do splatters. Splatters are always a lot of fun. And then one of the last techniques that we're going to use is called a crayon resist. And you can just use any kind of crayon. I'm using my son's really large crayons. And you can draw a picture. And you want to press kind of hard with your crayon for this. If you use white, it's even cooler. But you're going to do some crayon, and then you can do the watercolor over top, and the watercolor will not stick to the crayon. And so that is called a crayon resist. Now these are just some techniques that you can use. This week is going to be more about practicing those techniques. I'll put the picture back on if you need to look at it. But you can make whatever kind of painting you want out of this. If you want to do a landscape or a picture of your dog or anything you can think of, rainbows, butterflies, flowers. I just want you to try to practice at least a few of these different techniques. I will post underneath the video how many techniques I want to see in your artwork. So the older grade levels, you're going to be responsible for trying at least half of these, and the younger ones I want you to probably try one or two. So you can pick which ones you want. You can try all of them if you'd like, but here is our wonderful watercolor techniques for this week. And if you have any questions, I'm going to post this whole paper on internal, and I will talk to you soon.